Alkenes are nonpolar compounds, and therefore the only force which holds them together is London dispersion force. The physical properties of alkenes are similar to those of alkanes. So therefore, alkenes with less than 4 carbon atoms are gases at room temperature, and those alkenes with 5 or more carbons are colorless liquids, and their density is less than water, so therefore they float. And because alkenes are nonpolar, therefore they are insoluble in water, but they are highly soluble in nonpolar solvents such as hexane. Terpenes are a diverse class of naturally occurring compounds that share one common feature. And the common feature is that all terpenes can be thought of as being assembled from isoprene units. The structure of an isoprene unit is shown here. Isoprene is a diene, and it has a methyl group at number 2 position. The structure of an isoprene unit is such that the carbon 1 site is considered to be a head, and the location of carbon number 4 is considered to be a tail. So this would be considered a head, and that would be a tail. Terpenes are formed by bonding the tail of one isoprene unit to the head of another, and this is known as isoprene rule. For example, a naturally occurring molecule called myrcene, and the structure of this compound is this compound is found in bay and myricea plants, and as we can see here that this is made up of two isoprene units connected in head to tail fashion. So let me show you how. So this would represent one isoprene unit, and the other isoprene unit is here, and this would be the link uh, to the tail of first yellow isoprene unit, and this would be the head of the blue isoprene unit. So therefore this compound is classified as a terpene. Now, as isoprene is made up of 5 carbons, therefore all terpenes will be composed of multiple of 5 carbons. So in other words, terpenes could be made up of 5 carbons. Sorry, 5 is isoprene, so terpenes could be made up of 10 carbons, 15, 20, 25, or any other multiple of 5. A study of terpenes provides a glimpse of the wondrous diversity that nature can generate from a simple carbon skeleton. Terpenes also illustrate an important principle of the molecular logic of living system, that is, in building large molecules, small subunits are bonded together enzymatically by an iterative process and then modified by subsequent precise enzyme catalyzed reactions. Chemists also use the same principles in lab, but our methods do not have the precision and selectivity of enzyme catalyzed reactions in the living system. A wide variety of terpenes are isolated from the essential oils of plants. Terpenes generally have a strong fragrance and are often used as flavorants and odorants in a wide variety of applications. And those applications can be found in food as well as cosmetics. One famous example of terpene is menthol. Let me draw the structure of menthol. This is a structure of menthol, and menthol can be isolated from peppermint oil. And as we can see, menthol contains 10 carbon. Therefore, it is made up of 2 isoprene units because each isoprene unit has 5 carbons. All we need to do is isolate or identify those isoprene units. So they can easily be identified as head and tail. So this would be our first isoprene unit, and the second isoprene unit is here. So as we can see that this is one link and that's the other link. Alpha penine and camphor are other examples of terpenes, and alpha penine is isolated from turpentine. It's found in many coniferous trees such as a pine tree, and it's also found in cannabis in small quantities. Camphor, on the other hand, is found from camphor tree, and these two are also made up of 2 units of isoprenes. In case of alpha penine, the isoprene units can be seen in red and blue highlights. Blue and yellow highlights. The red lines indicate the head to tail linkage. Similarly, in case of camphor, we can also clearly see the 2 isoprene units. Fatty acids are long-chain hydrocarbon compounds which contain a carboxylic group at the end. The length of the carbon chain is usually anywhere from 12 to 24 carbon long, and this chain can be saturated or it can also be unsaturated. Fatty acids are usually obtained from the hydrolysis of a triglyceride. Now, triglycerides are found in animal fat as well as vegetable oils, and they are triesters of glycerol. So in other words, we have a glycerol compound. So will be a glycerol, and triester means the glycerol OH is replaced with the ester linkage, long chain ester linkage. So one of the example of triester is shown here. And when hydrolysis of triglyceride is done, it will release the glycerol and the free fatty acid chains. We will learn more about this reaction in next semester, but for now we only gonna focus on the properties of fatty acids. Fatty acids with no carbon-carbon double bonds are called saturated fatty acids, and those which contain one or more carbon-carbon double bond are called unsaturated fatty acids. The most common fatty acids have an even number of carbons, and they can be anywhere between 12 to 20, although fatty acids with longer chains are also found in nature. The carbon-carbon double bonds in most naturally occurring fatty acids have cis configuration. The melting point of fatty acids depend on the degree of unsaturation. More unsaturation any fatty acid has, lower will be its melting point. Hence, unsaturated fatty acids tend to be liquid at room temperature. Therefore, they are also known as oils. And saturated fatty acids are solids at room temperature, and therefore they are known as fats. Most of the fatty acids from plant sources are unsaturated, such as olive oil. Therefore, they are liquids at room temperature. One of the exceptions is coconut oil. And most fatty acids from animal sources tend to be saturated, hence they are solids at room temperature. Example is butter or lard. The structures of four most commonly abundant fatty acids are shown here. The first fatty acid is stearic acid. As we can see, that it is a saturated fatty acid and its melting point is 70 degrees Celsius. Hence, it's a solid at room temperature. Oleic acid, it's found in olive oil, and it has a one double bond, and as we can see, it is a cis double bond, and its melting point is 16 degrees Celsius. Hence, it's a liquid at room temperature. The the number 18 represents the length of carbon chain, and the next number represents the number of double bonds. For example, in oleic acid we have 18 carbon chain and we have one double bond. Linoleic acid, on the other hand, has the same number of carbon atoms in the chain, but it has two double bonds. And as we can see, more double bonds will result in lower melting point. These kind of fatty acid which contain multiple double bonds are known as polyunsaturated fatty acid. And polyunsaturated fatty acids are considered to be, or they are good for your health. As you can see that all naturally occurring fatty acids have cis configuration, as we can see here. Trans fatty acids do not exist in nature, and trans fatty acids are extremely bad for your health. We know that the double bond or rotation along the double bond is not possible at room temperature, therefore cis configuration remains cis. However, if we provide enough temperature, the pi bond will break and the rotation along the double bond will take place, and cis can be converted into trans configuration. Therefore, it is not a good idea to heat polyunsaturated fatty acids or any unsaturated fatty acid, because after heating at a critical temperature, the double bonds will break and the good fatty acid or the cis fatty acid will convert into bad fatty acid, which is the trans unsaturated fatty acid. So therefore, we should not heat these unsaturated fatty acids. In saturated fatty acids, the carbon chains exist largely in staggered and anti-conformation because of their high degree of order. So these fatty acid molecules can be packed really closely because the lines align perfectly, and the head group does have some polar dipole-dipole interactions, and the hydrocarbon chains will have the strong dispersion force, because the dispersion force depends on the size of the molecule. And as we can see, these triglycerides have considerable size. Therefore, saturated fatty acid have considerably strong intermolecular forces, hence they are solid at room temperature. However, in case of unsaturated fatty acid with cis configuration, those cis bonds create kinks in the chains. Therefore, the fatty acids chains, they have not a good packing order. So because of the double bond, so there will be kinks. So therefore, the unsaturated fatty acid cannot be packed really closely. So they are loosely packed. So loose packing results in less intermolecular forces. Less intermolecular forces means they will be liquid at room temperature. So butter, for example, has a high content of saturated fatty acids, so therefore it's a solid at room temperature. And plant oils have a high content of unsaturated fatty acid, therefore they are liquid at room temperature. So with that, we conclude chapter number 5. In this chapter, we learn about alkene structure and nomenclature. Apart from structure and nomenclature, we also learn about various physical properties of alkenes. And finally, we discussed naturally occurring alkenes, especially terpenes and fatty acids. If you have any other question, please let me know. And thank you everyone for watching the video. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Bye-bye.